This might sound like the craziest thing you've heard all month, but I think the property market will double in 5 years. This might feel like a dubious claim, and I get it. This current rising interest rate environment we're in is a massive headwind to property prices. In this video, we're going to go through not only why I think property prices can double, but whether or not you should actually buy property. Now, that sounds like a no-brainer given what I've just said, but upon closer inspection, it's not so simple. Some of this stuff I'm going to go over is things that I've learned along my journey in the past 10 years about the finance and property market. So I'm really excited to share it. Let's get into it. Alrighty, let's start back. It was about 6 years ago, I reckon, 2016. I can still remember this moment. I was in my backyard talking to one of my first clients, and now my good friend Chris. We were talking all things money, and inevitably things go to property. And I told him that I thought the property market had a good chance of doing a 4x in 10 years. I know, pretty crazy, right? But if you look at the graph from realestate.com.au of my hometown in Frankston, which is an outer suburb of Melbourne, you can see the aggressive nature in which property has increased over that time frame. Now, I know that the rate it's going at is not going to do a 4x by the time the 10 years is up. Obviously, there are reasons why I still believe it will get there, which I'll go to later on in the video. Honestly, looking back at that time, it sounded ludicrous even to me. My bold prediction was based on the research that I'd been doing at that time. Before I go into the research that I'd done and what was learnt from that research, I'd quickly like to set a bit more context into why I was doing this research. At the start of 2011, I'd left my banking career at a Big Four bank to start my own business as a mortgage broker. I was sick of working at the bank, basically because I didn't like selling a whole host of financial products. At that time, customer service officer meant that your job was a salesperson. Anyway, at that stage, I was on my mission to help my clients in the best way that I could. And doing that was learning all about property investing because Aussies are mad about property investing. Understanding the property market was a great task to set upon. But you get to a point where you have to go past understanding the supply and demand factors of the property market, and you've got to start to understand the supply and demand factors of money. Because let's face it, this property market is fueled by debt, right? This opened up a Pandora's box to me, and understanding economics is a discipline I still practice today. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with the rest. What I learned about our money system was we need to keep creating more money and more rapidly as time goes by. I figured out that most of this created money comes in the form of lending for property or home loans. This would therefore drive up house prices massively, and I think that's proven to be, in my eyes, a correct assumption. With regard to the timing aspect of it all, the 10 years, I think my prediction is now coming more and more closer to being realistic as the years pass. At the time, I'd been reading The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking by Phil Anderson, and his 18.5-year property clock or land cycle had just timed the market top to around that period of 2026 to 2027. I would suggest if you're interested in learning about property and investing, you should probably read that book, as the book is incredibly easy to read and allows you to understand the actual things that are going on in the world at the time, which allows the property market to boom. Trust me, most economics books are incredibly hard to read and they'll just put you to sleep really quick. This will give you a good start in understanding these things. Fast forward to today, October 2022, where we're about halfway through that time frame, and when we look at it, that prediction is becoming more and more realistic. Currently, it looks like the end of all things for all markets, and I have to admit, it does sort of feel like monumental things are about to happen in the world that are not positive. Let's just put it that way. But I go back to the fundamentals, and that is that they have to continuously print more and more money. I know that's not going to get me many fans, but that's the reality that we're living in. That tells me that the current interest rate environment that we're in will be reversed fast when central banks realize that doubling home loan interest rates in the span of 6 months is a bad idea. For more on that, you can actually check out another video I did, which you can find on the channel. Just think about the number one expense here in Australia. It's the housing expense. The central bank, which pulls the levers, basically has doubled the largest household expense within 6 months. What I want to add to that is they haven't even figured out how much impact it actually has had on the economy yet, because it actually takes a period of time for those things to be seen and measured. What's dangerous is when you pull the lever all the way down and you go hard on interest rates, there's no going back. You've got to pull the lever the whole way up and reverse interest rates. And I think that's what's going to happen. Either way, more money needs to be created. Now, let's go into more detail as to how the boom plays out. There's already a massive shortage in property. I've talked about this in other videos on the channel, but let me just peel off a few major points that'll see property prices rise massively. By the way, the low supply on the market is not up for debate in my eyes. It's just a fact. If you look at what's on the market, there's actually been a low supply for a while. I could be wrong about other places in Australia, but I know for a fact that here in Victoria, where I live, I can tell you it's been that way for at least a couple of years now, and that's not going to change. The gig is up. No one wants to sell property because they know it will just keep on rising. The more money they print, the more it's going to keep on going up. People intuitively know this, and they're holding on to assets like property, like gold, like Bitcoin. On top of that, there's another 200,000 plus immigrants coming in per year in the future. They're all going to be coming into our system. We need to be constantly growing our population to hide the fact that we're getting less and less productive. Immigration growth does that because it makes our GDP go up and it makes us look like we're being more productive. It keeps the politicians in power. To throw something else on top of that, these new home buyer schemes will ensure there is no supply at all. Again, I've done another video on this explaining the point in more detail, so I suggest you go and watch it if that's of interest to you. Remember when I said we need to keep on creating money as time goes on? Eventually it breaks down because the system creates wealth gaps. Eventually those wealth gaps get really big and the old system needs to make a way for a new, fairer one. Let me tease this out a bit because it's important. Our banks lend more and more to residential properties as time goes by, and less to small business. The government allow it as it's less risky to the banks and therefore less risky to the system. This means that property prices go up because we're lending more money to property. But on the flip side, it's not good because it forces property prices up faster than wages can keep up. Actually, if you have a look at it, our wages have performed horribly against house prices in the past few decades. When we lend to small businesses, it helps thrive productivity and innovation. And that helps drive wages up. This is good because it allows us to be able to afford to pay more for things like property. The way we're doing things at the moment is unsustainable and we will have a crash of our system at some point. Property prices cannot just keep going up so fast while wages basically go backwards. If you look back at history, there are two things that wipe people out financially. Number one, natural disasters, which you can't control, right? Number two is the debt, and we can control that. Here's the thing about debt. Let's just say, hypothetically, this is you in 5 years and you've taken out too much debt. You didn't think it was too much debt when you took out the debt in the first place. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken out the debt. Can you see how this situation happens? So the question we should always be asking ourselves is, are my debt levels too high? And not just for right now, but what if rates go up more? People are starting to understand this now more because we are beginning to deal with doubling interest rates, which is what most people haven't had to deal with before. Speaking of borrowing, here in Australia, we love to borrow 100% for property. So for property investing, I'm going to divide this up. So there's probably a couple of different answers here depending on how you look at it and what position you're in. So firstly, I'm going to talk about first home buyers. And then I'll talk about the investors. If I was a first home buyer now, I would still buy a property. That's an opinion, it's not a fact, but I would still buy property. Why? Because rents are going to increase anyway, and I need a property to live in, and if I'm going to be renting somewhere, it'll just be harder for me to save up anyway. So rents are increasing rapidly and there's no winning situation there. Now, you might not be renting, you might be living with your family. That's still not a winning situation if you're forced to live with your family for longer than what you expect to. So if I'm a first homeowner, I'm getting lots of government grants right now. I'd seek to have that 5% deposit and just get into the market. Now, here's why it's a bad idea to buy a property right now. If you buy a property now and the interest rates go up, say, another 2%, would you be able to deal with it? Because I can guarantee you there's a lot of people out there with $1 million of debt right now that are starting to feel the heat. What if the rates go up another percent from here? So now let me get my message clear for you, because There's a bit of crosswinds here. Let me just dumb it down and explain to you and hit you right between the eyes. You want to acquire assets in these times, not financial advice. These highly inflationary times means assets are the only things that actually keep their value, but you must be careful of your debt levels because for all of history, the people who get in too much debt get wiped out. That's my message. If you're in that position, the team here at Wilbell Mortgage Broker can help you come to a point where you understand how much debt is enough for you because everyone has different risk levels. So if you need help structuring a home loan or your debt or your finances and you want to talk about borrowing, this is a great time to chat with an experienced mortgage broker and we'd be very happy to chat with you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If not, tell us what you didn't like. If you think I'm just totally ignoring stuff or I'm full of it, please give us a comment. Or if you've got any other questions, put them in the comments section below. Till next time, cheers.